My Lords, I have some sympathy with what the noble Lord Oates has just said, and my concern is perhaps even a little bit more profound than his, because I don't actually really understand what role the government sees for pumped storage in addressing the problem of intermittency of renewables, whereas he focuses on the funding mechanism. But what role is it actually going to have? How large a part does the government intend that it should play? But that is not my purpose in rising. My purpose in rising is to speak to Amendment 225, which relates rather to gas, which is also there to be used to some extent to address the problem of intermittency. And I'm grateful for the support of the noble Lord West of Spithead and my noble friends Lady Mackintosh of Pickering and Lord Frost. The House had a question on gas storage earlier today, and the Minister made some helpful comments and informative comments in response to that. But it was largely a backward-looking question. It looked at what are decisions taken in the past, whereas this amendment is intended to try to look a little bit more forward. What it does is require the government to provide gas storage onshore or in our waters, under our waters, equivalent to 25% of forecast annual demand. But in a sense, the real purpose is to give the government an opportunity and to elicit from them some sense of their own plans for addressing this question, because as we've all seen and been much gripped by on the television news and in the newspapers in the last few months, while Germany has been busily filling up its capacious gas storage facilities, we have had none whatsoever. So I think the House will be interested to know what the government intends, and the public will be interested to know what the government intends if the Minister is capable of giving us an indication today. About this amendment, I'd just like to make 2 points. To those who say that we are phasing gas out, I would say that the amendment is worded so as to require 25% of forecast demand. So if gas is if the amount required, the demand required, comes down, the amendment still works and the amount stored can be adjusted. I think I'm correct in saying, and this emerged at second reading, that nobody in the House believes that demand for gas is going to fall to zero, even if it is to fall to quite low or even minuscule levels. So the amendment, I think, still works, and planning over the long term and looking forward a number of years, it should be possible to have to make this a workable thing. The second thing I want to say is about the number 25%. I put 25% in really as much as anything else as a placeholder. I'm very open to the government making a case as to why that number should be higher or lower, and why government policy should not be 25% but more or less. I'm even open to an argument that the number should be 0%. And indeed, listening to or reviewing what my noble friend the Minister said today, he did make the point, and it's a very valid point, that unlike Germany, we, so to speak, already have a store of gas in our control. It just happens to be under the sea. And I do understand that there is a point there. I think back to the United States in the 1970s when the oil shock arrived, and the United States decided that what they needed was a large oil reserve. So they started pumping oil into specially prepared caverns in the earth. And then I think it sort of struck them that what they were doing was pumping oil out of one bit of the earth and pumping it into another bit of the earth, and perhaps this wasn't as sensible as it might have been, and so the policy was gradually abandoned. Now, the Minister may want to make a similar and parallel point in respect of our own gas reserves. He may say zero is a perfectly reasonable number for us to store. But then, if the answer from the government were zero, it would at least be a decision, and it would be a policy, and we would be able to scrutinise it and understand the arguments for it. So, as I say, the number at 25 is very much a placeholder. I'm not being in any sense dogmatic about what the number should be, but I do feel the government should have a number in mind, should be able to justify it, even if it's zero, and should be able, I hope, to tell us what it is.